The Grand Meridian Ballroom sparkled with 300 guests celebrating my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. Crystal chandeliers cast elegant light over tables decorated with imported flowers and expensive linens. A string quartet played classical music in the corner. Everything was perfect, exactly the kind of ostentatious display my parents loved. I stood near the catering station watching my family mingle with Seattle's elite. My mother, Diana Ashford, wore a custom gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. My father, Robert, looked distinguished in his tuxedo, greeting guests with the practiced charm of a man who'd spent 40 years building a commercial real estate empire. My older brother Preston worked the room like he was running for office, his wife Stephanie glued to his side in her designer dress. My sister Vanessa held court near the bar, her recent promotion to marketing director at Dad's company giving her extra confidence. And then there was me, Charlotte Ashford, the family disappointment, standing alone by the shrimp cocktail. "Charlotte, dear, you look lovely tonight," my Aunt Margaret said, approaching with a champagne flute. Her tone was the kind reserved for people you pity. "That dress is interesting. Vintage." "It's from 3 years ago," I said. "Still fits, still looks good. No reason to buy new." "How practical." She smiled tightly. "And how's the photography business? Still doing those, what do you call them? Freelance shoots?" "Event photography mostly. Weddings, corporate functions, anniversaries." I gestured around the ballroom. "Events like this. How nice that you have a little hobby," she said. "Though I'm sure your parents wish you'd pursue something more substantial. Like Preston's work at the company or Vanessa's marketing position." Before I could respond, my father's voice boomed across the ballroom. "Everyone, can I have your attention? It's time for the family portrait." Guests moved to the sides of the room as a photographer, one I didn't recognize, though I recognized the company logo on his equipment bag, set up near a backdrop of flowers. My mother beckoned to Preston, Vanessa, and their spouses. "Come, darlings. Let's get the family photo before dinner." I started to move toward them, but my father held up his hand. "Charlotte, wait there. We need to keep the photo clean and professional looking." I stopped mid-step. "Clean? You know what I mean," he said, his voice lower but still audible to nearby guests. "We need the family photo to look perfect. Preston in his suit, Vanessa and Stephanie in their gowns. You're not exactly dressed for a formal portrait. Just wait by the catering table, we'll do casual shots later." My mother nodded in agreement. "It's about aesthetics, dear. We want the portrait to represent the family's image properly. You understand?" I did understand. I understood perfectly. The family's image didn't include their daughter in a 3-year-old dress who worked as a freelance photographer, instead of joining the family business. I was an aesthetic problem to be cropped out. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. "I'll wait here." I walked to the catering station and watched as my family arranged themselves for the portrait. Preston and his wife on one side, Vanessa on the other. My parents in the center, beaming. The perfect family. The successful family. The family without the disappointment daughter cluttering up their image. What they didn't notice, what they'd never bothered to notice, was that the photographer worked for Luminary Events, my company. The venue coordinator checking details with my mother? My employee. The caterer setting up dinner service? My staff. The florist adjusting centerpieces? On my payroll. Every single vendor at this anniversary party worked for me. I'd founded Luminary Events 6 years ago with money I'd saved from actual freelance photography gigs. Started small, coordinating weddings for friends, managing small corporate events. Built a reputation for excellence, expanded services, hired talented staff. Now Luminary Events was one of the top event management companies in Seattle, generating $8.4 million in annual revenue. And my parents, who'd never taken my photography hobby seriously, had hired my company to plan their anniversary party. They'd communicated through my sales manager, never realizing the owner was their own daughter. I pulled out my phone and texted my operations manager, Lisa, who was coordinating everything from the back office. "Change of plans. Bill comes due at 10 p.m. instead of net 30. Full amount. No family discount." Her response came immediately. "Confirm. $127,000 full payment tonight? No discount." I looked at my family posed for their perfect photo without me. Confirmed. Every penny. The photographer finished the family portraits, and my parents moved on to greet more guests. I watched Preston approach Dad laughing about something work-related. Vanessa joined them and they formed their own little circle of success, discussing quarterly earnings and market expansion. No one looked my way. No one came to include me. I was the odd one out, the one who'd chosen freelance photography over a real career, who didn't understand business, who embarrassed them with her lack of ambition. If only they knew. The dinner service began. A 5-course meal I'd personally planned with our executive chef. Each course was perfectly timed, beautifully presented, exquisitely prepared. Guests raved about the food, the service, the impeccable coordination. My mother made a point of telling everyone about her wonderful event planner, who'd made everything so special. She just didn't know that wonderful event planner was her daughter. I sat at a table in the back with distant cousins I barely knew. Not at the family table with Preston and Vanessa. Not near my parents where their important guests could meet the whole family. Tucked away where I wouldn't be too visible. Charlotte. My cousin Beth, who I hadn't seen in 3 years, leaned over. I heard you're doing photography now? That's so creative. I always knew you were the artistic one. I do event management actually, I said. Photography is just part of it. Oh, how nice. Like party planning. She said it the way people say, how nice, about things they don't consider real work. That must be fun. It's a business, I said. I employ 47 people across event coordination, catering, photography, videography, and technical production. She blinked. You own a business? For 6 years now. Luminary Events. We're one of Seattle's top event management companies. I had no idea, she said, looking genuinely surprised. Does your family know? They know I do freelance photography, I said with a slight smile. They've never asked for more details. Around 9:30, my parents' best friends, the Hendersons, stood to give a toast. They talked about 40 years of friendship, of watching Robert and Diana build their empire, of family values and legacy. Robert and Diana have built something remarkable, Mr. Henderson said. A successful business, a beautiful family. Their children are following in their footsteps, carrying on the Ashford tradition of excellence. He named Preston and Vanessa specifically. I wasn't mentioned. As usual. At 9:55 p.m., I excused myself from the table and walked to the venue's business office, where Lisa was managing operations. She looked up from her laptop when I entered. Everything's ready, she said. Final bill calculated, payment request prepared. Should I send it? Send it at exactly 10 p.m., I confirmed. To my father's email and my mother's. CC their accountant. This is going to cause a scene, Lisa observed. You know that, right? I'm counting on it, I said. At 10 p.m. precisely, the email went out. I returned to the ballroom, positioning myself where I could see my parents clearly. My father was in the middle of a conversation with business associates when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, probably expecting a congratulatory message. His face went from relaxed to confused to angry in about 3 seconds. He grabbed my mother's arm, showing her his phone. Her eyes widened. She pulled out her own phone, checking her email. Her hand flew to her mouth. I watched them excuse themselves from their conversation and hurry toward the venue coordinator, my employee Jessica, who was standing near the entrance looking appropriately professional and slightly concerned. What is this? My father demanded, loud enough that nearby guests turned to look. This bill? $127,000 due immediately. Jessica maintained her professional composure, something I'd trained all my staff to do in difficult situations. Sir, that's the invoice for tonight's event. Per the contract, payment is due on delivery of services. All services have now been delivered. The contract said net 30, my mother protested, her voice rising. We have 30 days to pay. This is some kind of scam. I'm sorry, Mrs. Ashford, but the contract was modified this evening per the Client Agreement Clause, Section 4.2. Payment is now due immediately. Jessica handed them a printed copy of the invoice, perfectly formatted with our company letterhead. All charges are itemized as per our original quote. Venue rental, catering, floral arrangements, photography, entertainment, coordination services. Everything was discussed and approved in advance. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. He was used to being in control, used to dictating terms. This reversal was clearly difficult for him. This is ridiculous. We're not paying tonight. You can't change terms at the last minute. Send the bill to our accountant and we'll process it through normal channels. I'm afraid that's not possible, sir. The contract modification was executed according to the terms you agreed to when you signed with Luminary Events. If payment isn't received by 10:30 p.m., we'll have to initiate our standard collection procedures. Collection procedures? My mother's voice had reached a pitch that was attracting significant attention now. At our anniversary party? This is extortion. This is, she couldn't seem to find words strong enough. The commotion was drawing a real crowd now. Guests who'd been politely pretending not to notice were openly watching, whispering behind champagne flutes. I could see phones coming out, people recording, probably posting to social media. The Ashford anniversary party drama was about to go viral. Preston hurried over, followed closely by Vanessa and their spouses. Both looked concerned and confused. What's going on? Preston asked, glancing between our parents and Jessica. Dad, what's happening? These people want $127,000 right now, my father said through gritted teeth. At our anniversary party. In front of all our guests. It's outrageous. It's unprofessional. It's contractually required, Jessica interjected calmly. I apologize for any inconvenience, but Luminary Events takes its payment terms seriously. What company is this? Vanessa demanded, taking the invoice from my mother's trembling hands. Luminary Events? Her eyes widened slightly. Wait, I know this company. They're supposed to be one of the best in Seattle. They're highly professional. They're extortionists, my mother said shrilly, changing terms at the last minute, demanding immediate payment at our celebration. Actually, I said, stepping forward into the circle, the contract always included provisions for immediate payment requirements under specific circumstances. You agreed to those terms when you signed. Charlotte, not now, my mother snapped without even looking at me. We're dealing with a business issue. This doesn't concern you. Actually, Mom, I think this is exactly my concern. Since I'm the one who modified the payment terms. I turned to Jessica. Thank you, Jess. I'll handle it from here. Can you check on the breakdown schedule? I want to make sure we're ready for the midnight event. Jessica's eyes lit up with barely concealed amusement. Of course, Ms. Ashford. I'll coordinate with the team. She nodded professionally to my parents and walked away. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the string quartet finishing their piece in the corner. Even they seemed to be playing more quietly, as if the entire ballroom was holding its breath. Ms. Ashford. Preston repeated slowly. Jess called you Ms. Ashford. That's because I'm her boss, I said simply. Luminary Events is my company. I founded it 6 years ago. My father stared at me like I'd just announced I was from Mars. That's not possible. You're a freelance photographer. You can't. I own an event management company, I corrected, pulling out my phone and showing them the Luminary Events owner portal. Full-service event coordination. We handle everything from small corporate functions to large-scale galas like this one. You hired my company to plan your anniversary party, Dad. Well, technically you hired us through our sales manager Linda, but the company is mine. I approved your event proposal personally. Vanessa was furiously scrolling on her phone. Luminary Events, founded 2019, CO Charlotte Ashford. She looked up, her face pale. Annual revenue $8.4 million. 47 full-time employees. Rated 4.9 stars on every review platform. She lowered her phone slowly. Oh my God. This is real. Of course it's real, I said. Why would I lie about owning a company? But you're a photographer, my mother said weakly, like she was trying to hold on to her understanding of reality. You do wedding photography. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old Honda. I'm an event management professional, I corrected. Photography is one service among many that my company provides. I live in a one-bedroom apartment because it's convenient to my downtown office and I don't need a lot of space. I drive a 5-year-old car because it's reliable and environmentally conscious. None of that means I'm failing. It means I have different priorities than you do. Preston was still staring at the numbers on his phone. You generated $8.4 million in revenue last year? 8.6 actually. The public records are a quarter behind. I pulled up my company dashboard. This year we're tracking toward 9.2 million. These are tonight's events. 17 total across Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver. That's the benefit of having skilled teams who can work independently. I'm here tonight, but my operations managers are handling 6 other events as we speak. My father seemed to have trouble processing this information. His mouth opened and closed several times before he managed. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us you'd built all this? I tried, Dad. Multiple times. I kept my voice level, not angry, just factual. Remember 3 years ago at Thanksgiving? I mentioned I'd coordinated a corporate gala for 500 people. You said, "That's nice," and immediately changed the subject to Preston's quarterly performance numbers. You literally cut me off mid-sentence to talk about commercial real estate. Preston winced. I remember that. You were trying to talk about a Microsoft event or something. The Microsoft Giving campaign, I corrected. $1.2 million event. One of my company's biggest successes that year. But Dad wanted to discuss office vacancy rates instead. Or last Christmas, I continued, when I mentioned I'd hired a full-time staff of 12 people. Vanessa laughed and said it was cute that I was playing businesswoman. She suggested I should stop pretending and get a real job before it was too late. Vanessa's face flushed. I didn't mean I thought you were. You thought I was failing, I finished. You all did. Because I wasn't working for Dad's company, because I didn't wear designer clothes to family events, because I drove a sensible car instead of showing off. You decided I was unsuccessful, and nothing I said could change your minds because you weren't actually listening. The crowd of guests watching this unfold had grown larger. I could see phones held up, recording. Tomorrow this would be all over social media. The Ashford family's public reckoning with their unappreciated daughter. Part of me felt bad about the spectacle. A larger part felt vindicated. My mother's mascara was running now, creating dark tracks down her carefully made-up face. The family photo, she whispered. Oh God, Charlotte. The family photo. We excluded you because we were embarrassed of you, and all this time you were running the entire event. Not just running it, I clarified. Planning it, coordinating it, making it happen. Every detail you complimented tonight. The centerpieces, the food, the timing, the ambience. That was my team's work. My work. The wonderful event planner you've been praising to your guests? That's me. But why charge us immediately? My father asked, and there was desperation in his voice now. Why humiliate us like this? Humiliate you? I repeated. You excluded me from a family photo. At an event I coordinated. You literally told me to stand by the catering table so I wouldn't ruin your aesthetic. And you're asking why I'm requiring immediate payment. That's different. Is it? You treated me like hired help at your party, Dad. So I'm acting like hired help. Hired help that requires payment upon delivery of services. I gestured around the ballroom. Everything you see here, the venue, the decorations, the food, the entertainment, this is worth $127,000. You received excellent value. You just didn't realize your daughter was the one providing it. Charlotte, Preston said carefully, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be angry. But is this really how you want to handle this? Publicly? In front of all these people? You mean the way you publicly excluded me from the family photo? I asked. The way Dad loudly told me to wait by the catering table in front of dozens of guests? This public. He had no response to that. Vanessa was crying now, her perfect makeup ruined. I'm so sorry, Charlotte. I had no idea. None of us had any idea what you'd built. If we'd known. If you'd known, you would have treated me better? I asked. Vanessa, that's exactly the problem. My value to this family shouldn't depend on my net worth or the size of my company. I'm your sister. That should have been enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Payment clearing now. Verification in progress. Your accountant is processing the payment, I told my father. I can see it hitting our system now. Full amount $127,000. He nodded numbly. The fight had gone out of him completely. Another text. Payment cleared. $127,000 received in full. I showed the notification to my parents. Payment confirmed. Thank you for your business. Luminary Events appreciates your patronage and hopes you enjoyed your event. The professional courtesy in my tone was deliberate. I wasn't their disappointed daughter anymore in this moment. I was their vendor, their service provider, treating them exactly as they treated me. Charlotte, my mother started, reaching for my arm. Please, can we talk about this? Can we go somewhere private? I have another event in 45 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Tech company product launch across town. 300 guests, full production setup, live streaming capabilities. My coordination team needs my final approval before doors open at midnight. You're leaving? Vanessa asked incredulously. Just like that. After all this. I have work to do. Unlike you all assumed, I have a very demanding career. I nodded toward Jessica, who was approaching with a tablet. Jess, status update? Breakdown crew is ready. Catering team will begin clearing in 15 minutes. Photography packages will be delivered digitally within 48 hours. Venue will be fully cleared by 11:30 p.m. He showed me the tablet. Sign off on the completion checklist? I reviewed it quickly. Every item checked, every service delivered. I signed digitally. Excellent work. Please comp the staff an extra 100 per person tonight. They handled a difficult client situation with perfect professionalism. Difficult client? My father sputtered. We're your family. Tonight you were a client, I said simply. A client who booked services and then disrespected the service provider. My staff handled it beautifully. I turned back to Jessica. Make sure everyone gets home safely. I'll be at the tech launch if you need anything. Have a great event, Ms. Ashford. I started walking toward the exit, pulling my car keys from my purse. My parents and siblings stared after me, seemingly frozen. Then Preston jogged after me. Charlotte, wait. Please. Just wait a minute. I stopped but didn't turn around immediately. When I did, I saw genuine distress on his face. Can we talk? He asked. Please? Not here, not in front of everyone. Just give me 5 minutes. Outside. I sighed and checked my watch again. 5 minutes. I'm serious about that midnight event. We walked out to the venue's terrace, where the city lights provided enough illumination. The cool night air was a relief after the stuffy ballroom. I owe you an apology, Preston said immediately. A massive one. We all do, but I want to start with me personally. Go ahead. I had no idea you built something so successful. None of us did. And that's entirely on us. We should have asked, should have been interested, should have supported you. He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from childhood. But Charlotte, you have to understand something from our perspective. Enlighten me, I said, crossing my arms. When you left Dad's company after 6 months, when you said commercial real estate wasn't for you, it hurt him. Deeply. He saw it as rejection. Not rejection of the work. Rejection of him, of everything he'd built, of the family legacy. That's on him, I said. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal. That I had different interests, different skills. He took it personally anyway. I know. And then when you started doing freelance photography, small wedding gigs, it looked like you were drifting. Like you'd given up on having a real career. To you, I corrected. It looked that way to you because you weren't paying attention. I was building something from day one, Preston. Every wedding I photographed, I learned more about event coordination. Every corporate function, I built more connections. I was strategic and deliberate, but you all saw it as aimless. You're right, he admitted. We weren't looking close enough. We made assumptions and then stopped looking at all. And tonight, I prompted. The photo. He closed his eyes. That was unconscionable. Dad was worried about image, about the formal family portrait looking perfect for the anniversary album. You were wearing an older dress. You hadn't gone to the salon with Mom and Vanessa. So I didn't fit the aesthetic. I finished. I understand the logic. I just don't accept it as a reasonable excuse for excluding your own daughter from a family photo. Neither do I, he said firmly. Charlotte, there's no excuse for that. None. It was cruel and thoughtless, and I should have said something. I should have told Dad it was wrong. But I didn't, and I'm sorry. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. You're not usually the kind of person who goes along with something he thinks is wrong. Preston looked uncomfortable. Honestly, as part of me agreed with him. I thought you looked out of place next to Vanessa in her designer gown and me in my custom tuxedo. I thought the photo would look better without the visible reminder that one of us had chosen a different path. At least he was being honest. And now? I asked. Now I realize that different path was actually a more successful path than any of us imagined. That you built something remarkable while we were busy feeling sorry for you. He shook his head. 9.2 million projected revenue this year? Charlotte, that's incredible. That's beyond incredible. It's business, I said with a shrug. Good business practices, solid growth strategy, quality service delivery. Nothing magical about it. Can I ask you something? He said. Why event management? Why not something more visible? More prestigious in traditional terms? I had to laugh at that. Prestigious like commercial real estate? You know what I mean. I chose event management because I'm good at it, Preston. Because I understand logistics and coordination and client service. Because I can look at an empty space and envision exactly how to transform it for an event. Because I'm good with people, good at managing teams, good at solving problems in real time. I gestured back toward the ballroom. Tonight went perfectly. 300 guests, complex coordination, 0 major issues. That's what I do. I make impossible logistics look effortless. Why didn't you make us see it? He asked. Why didn't you force us to understand? Because I shouldn't have to force my own family to respect me, I said, echoing what I told him on the phone later. You should have been curious. You should have asked questions. You should have wanted to understand what I was building. But you didn't, so I stopped trying to explain. My phone buzzed. Lisa, tech launch team asking if you're coming. They want your approval on the main stage lighting. I showed Preston the message. I have to go. For real this time. I understand. He pulled out his wallet and handed me a business card. This is me. Not work me, personal me. My cell number, personal email. Card, I want to know you. The real you. Not the version I invented in my head. Will you let me try? I took the card and studied it. Actions matter more than words, Preston. Don't call me tomorrow full of apologies and then ghost me for 6 months. Don't promise to be better and then fall back into old patterns. I won't, he said. I promise. We'll see, I said and walked to my car. As I drove across town to the tech launch, I felt strangely calm. I just had a major confrontation with my entire family, sent them a bill for over $100,000, and publicly revealed the success I'd been building for years. By all rights, I should be shaking with adrenaline or anxiety. Said I felt relieved. The secret was out. The pretense was over. They knew what I'd built, and I didn't have to keep downplaying my success to make family dinners more comfortable. The tech launch went perfectly. My team had everything set up flawlessly and the client was thrilled. At 2 a.m. as I finally headed home, I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 34 text messages. Most from family members. I'd deal with all of it tomorrow. Tonight I just wanted to sleep. A crowd was gathering now. Guests who'd been politely pretending not to notice were openly watching our family drama unfold. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tell you what? That I built a successful business? Tried Mom. Multiple times. Remember 3 years ago at Thanksgiving when I mentioned I'd coordinated a corporate gala for 500 people? Dad said, that's nice. And changed the subject to Preston's quarterly numbers. Or last Christmas when I said I'd hired a full-time staff. Vanessa said it was cute that I was playing businesswoman. I pulled up my phone and showed them my company dashboard. This is real-time data. Tonight's event is one of 17 events we're managing this weekend across 3 cities. That's nearly $500,000 in revenue from this weekend alone. Preston was looking at the numbers on my screen, his expression stunned. You're managing multiple cities? How many employees did you say? 47 full-time, plus another 32 part-time and contract workers depending on event schedules. I closed my phone. I've been trying to talk about my business for years. You've all dismissed it as a hobby. As something I do because I'm not serious enough for real work. We didn't know, my father said, but there was no conviction in his voice. You didn't ask, I corrected. Big difference. You saw event photography on my business card and decided that was all I did. You never asked about the company structure, the revenue, the growth projections. You just assumed I was failing at life because I didn't join your real estate company. My mother had tears in her eyes now and mascara was starting to run. The family photo. Oh God, the family photo. We excluded you because I didn't fit your aesthetic, I finished. Because successful families don't have daughters in 3-year-old dresses who do freelance photography. Except this 3-year-old dress is from a sustainable fashion brand I support, and the freelance photography is actually a multi-million-dollar business that just planned your entire anniversary party. The watching crowd was silent. Some people looked shocked. Others looked impressed. A few were clearly enjoying the drama. The bill, my father said weakly. The immediate payment requirement is what happens when a client treats their vendor with disrespect, I said calmly. When you exclude that vendor from the family photo at an event she coordinated. When you position her by the catering table like hired help while celebrating your successful family. I shrugged. Standard contract terms allow for payment requirement modifications at the owner's discretion. I exercised that discretion. You're punishing us, Vanessa accused. I'm requiring payment for services rendered, I corrected. Is that punishment? Or is that just business? My father reached for his phone. I'll call our accountant. We'll wire the money tonight. I appreciate that, I said. Then I turned to Jessica. Please ensure the payment clears before we begin teardown. Standard protocols. She nodded and walked away to coordinate with the finance team. I looked at my family, my parents, my siblings, their spouses, all of them staring at me like they'd never seen me before. Charlotte, my mother started. We had no idea. Save it, Mom. You had every opportunity to know. You chose not to ask. I glanced around at the curious guests. Your party was beautiful, by the way. My team did excellent work. You should write a good review. It's good for business. I started to walk away, but Preston called after me. Wait. Just wait. I stopped and turned back. Why didn't you force us to see it? He asked. Why didn't you make us understand what you'd built? Because I shouldn't have to force my own family to respect me, I said simply. You should have been curious. You should have been interested. You should have asked questions instead of making assumptions. But you didn't. So I stopped trying to explain and just focused on building my business. This is insane, Vanessa said, shaking her head. You let us believe you were struggling. You let us pity you. You pitied me without asking if pity was warranted, I said. That's on you, not me. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Payment cleared. $127,000 received in full. I showed the notification to my father. Payment received. Thank you for your business. Luminary Events appreciates your patronage. The sarcasm was probably unnecessary, but it felt earned. Over the next hour, the party wound down. Guests began leaving, many of them stopping to congratulate me on my company, asking for business cards, mentioning events they needed coordinated. I'd brought a stack of cards, I always did, and handed them out with professional courtesy. My parents stood near the exit, thanking guests for coming, but their smiles were strained. They kept glancing at me, clearly wanting to talk but not sure what to say. Preston approached me as I was coordinating the breakdown with my team. Can we talk? Outside. I'm working, I said, checking a clipboard. This is a business operation. My team needs direction. Charlotte, please. 5 minutes. I sighed and handed the clipboard to my assistant coordinator. 5 minutes. Then I have a midnight event to get to across town. We walked out to the venue's terrace, where the city lights provided enough illumination without us being visible to the remaining guests. I owe you an apology, Preston said without preamble. A massive one. We all do. Probably, I agreed. I had no idea you built something so successful. None of us did. And that's on us. We should have asked, should have been interested, should have supported you. He ran his hand through his hair. But Charlotte, you have to understand, from our perspective, you walked away from the family business. You rejected what Dad built. It felt like you were rejecting us. I didn't reject you, I said. I chose a different path. There's a difference. I see that now. But at the time it felt personal. Like you were saying our work wasn't good enough for you. Preston, real estate development is Dad's passion, not mine. I tried working at the company for 6 months after college. Remember? I was miserable. I don't have the personality for it, don't have the interest. It would have been a disaster. So you started photographing weddings instead. I started learning event management through photography, I corrected. I saw how much money people spent on events, how much chaos there was in coordination, how few companies did it really well. I saw an opportunity and I took it. And built a multi-million-dollar company, he said quietly. While we thought you were barely getting by. I live modestly by choice, not necessity. I reinvest most profits back into the business. I drive a 5-year-old car because it's reliable. I wear old dresses because fashion trends don't interest me. None of that means I'm failing. It means I have different priorities. Preston nodded slowly. Dad's going to want to talk to you. He's devastated. He should be. He excluded his own daughter from a family photo at an event she coordinated. That's pretty devastating. I know. We all know. Charlotte, can you forgive us? Can we fix this? I thought about that question. I don't know, Preston. This isn't about one photo or one party. This is about years of dismissal. Years of being treated like the family disappointment because I didn't follow your path. Years of my accomplishments being ignored or minimized. We'll do better, he promised. Words are easy. Actions are what matter. I checked my watch. My 5 minutes are up. I need to get to my next event. You weren't joking about that? I never joke about work. We're managing a tech company's product launch party starting at midnight. 300 guests, full production setup. I started walking back inside. That's what Luminary Events does. We make impossible schedules work. Over the next few days, my phone exploded with calls and texts from family members. My mother called crying, wanting to have lunch. My father sent a formal email requesting a business meeting. Vanessa texted asking if we could talk. Preston sent links to articles about successful entrepreneurs, with messages like, "This is you." I ignored most of it. I had work to do, actual work, not family drama. But a week after the anniversary party, my mother showed up at my office unannounced. My receptionist tried to stop her, but Mom pushed through, appearing in my office doorway with red eyes and a determined expression. "We need to talk," she said. I glanced at my schedule. "I have a client meeting in 20 minutes. I'll be quick. Please, Charlotte. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I keep seeing that moment when your father told you to wait by the catering table, and I want to die." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit." She sat, looking around my office. The modern furniture, the industry awards on the walls, the photos of high-profile events we'd coordinated. "This is impressive. It's really impressive." "Thank you." "I'm a terrible mother," she said bluntly. "I spent 6 years assuming my daughter was failing when she was actually succeeding beyond anything I could have imagined. I excluded you from a family photo because I was embarrassed by what I thought you'd become, when I should have been incredibly proud of what you'd actually built." I said nothing, letting her continue. "Your father and I have spent the past week realizing how blind we've been. How every time you tried to tell us about your work, we shut you down or changed the subject. How we made you feel like you weren't good enough because you didn't fit into our specific idea of success." "Yes," I agreed. "You did all of those things. Can you forgive us?" she asked. "Can we make this right?" I leaned back in my chair. "Mom, forgiveness isn't a simple transaction. You can't just apologize and have everything go back to normal. You excluded me from a family photo. You literally positioned me by the catering table like I was staff rather than family. That hurt. It hurt a lot. I know. I'm so sorry. But," I interrupted, "I also understand that you were operating on incomplete information. You saw what you expected to see because I didn't force you to see anything else. So yes, you failed to ask questions. But I also failed to be more explicit about what I'd built." Her eyes filled with tears. "So you forgive us?" "I'm willing to try to move forward," I said carefully. "But Mom, things can't go back to how they were. I'm not going to keep trying to earn your respect or prove my worth. I've built something remarkable. If you want to be part of my life going forward, you need to accept that and respect it." "I do," she said immediately. "We do. All of us." "Then show me through actions, not words. Come to my events. Ask about my business. Stop comparing me to Preston and Vanessa. See me for who I actually am." "We will," she promised. "Charlotte, your father wants to hire you. For the company's 50th anniversary gala next year. He wants Luminary Events to coordinate the entire thing, and he wants to pay full price. No family discount. I raised an eyebrow. He wants to hire me? Officially. He wants to support your business the way he should have been supporting it all along. He pulled out a folder. He asked me to bring you this. Preliminary details for the event. 500 guests, formal dinner, entertainment, the works. He's estimating a budget of $300,000. I took the folder and flipped through it. It was a legitimate event brief, professionally put together with reasonable expectations and a realistic budget. Tell him I'll review it and get back to him with a proposal by Friday, I said. Standard client procedures apply. Thank you, she said, standing. And Charlotte, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm incredibly proud of what you've built. Thank you, Mom. That means something. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time thinking about family and success and the complicated intersection of the two. 2 weeks later, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. Not a formal event, just dinner. Preston and his wife were there, Vanessa and her boyfriend, my parents, and me. My father stood to make a toast before we ate. To Charlotte, he said, raising his glass, who built something remarkable while we weren't paying attention. We're sorry we didn't see it sooner. We're proud of you and we're grateful you're giving us a second chance. To Charlotte, everyone echoed. It wasn't perfect. Years of dismissal don't heal with one dinner. But it was a start. And as I looked around the table at my family, really seeing them and them really seeing me for the first time in years, I thought maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But I'd do it on my terms this time. As a successful businesswoman, not as the family disappointment. Because I was Charlotte Ashford. I'd been excluded from the family photo, so I'd sent the bill instead. And somehow that had changed everything. A month after the anniversary party, Preston called me with news. Dad's telling everyone at his company about you. About Luminary Events. He's actually proud, Charlotte. He brags about you the way he used to brag about my quarterly numbers. That's nice, I said, meaning it. He also mentioned something interesting. He said excluding you from that photo was the best-worst decision he ever made. The best-worst decision? Because it forced him to see what he'd been missing. Forced all of us to see it. Preston paused. He's right, you know. If you'd just accepted being excluded, if you'd let it slide, we might have kept underestimating you forever. But you didn't. You sent the bill. You made us look at what you'd actually built. I just required payment for services rendered, I said with a slight smile. You made a statement. And it worked. I looked out my office window at the city below. Somewhere out there, my team was setting up for another event. Another success. Another proof that Charlotte Ashford knew exactly what she was doing. It wasn't about making a statement, I said. It was about standing up for myself. About refusing to be invisible anymore. Well, you're definitely visible now, Preston said with a laugh. Mom showed your company portfolio to her entire book club. Vanessa keeps sending me your press coverage. We're all insufferable about you now. That's an improvement over being insufferable about my failures. Fair point. After we hung up, I returned to work. My calendar was full. 3 consultations, 2 site visits, 1 vendor meeting. Normal business for a normal day. But as I worked, I found myself smiling. My family finally saw me. Finally understood what I'd built. Finally respected the path I'd chosen. It had taken being excluded from a photo to get there. But maybe Preston was right. Maybe that exclusion was the catalyst we all needed. I was Charlotte Ashford. I'd built an empire while they planned my intervention. And now finally they knew it.